Welcome to the channel and welcome to episode 5 of my solo play Grimdark Future campaign. Set on the planet of Novus Chestrensis, we return to the rocky crags and barren areas of Novus Chestrensis Prime, the northern continent. Having investigated the loss of contact at the mine in Delving Creek on Novus Chestrensis Secundus, Captain Myers has returned to the HDF High Command and informed them of the presence of the Soul Snatcher cult, and also that he found evidence that Havoc Plague disciples of the Plague God had been to the site. HDF High Command have informed him that there are indeed Plague disciples on the planet. Scouts on the northern continent had spotted them, and they had been engaged by the Orcs. A battle ensued, the Orcs were victorious, but suffered heavy losses in the process. But the Scouts have once again lost contact with the Plague disciples. To that end, the HDF have dispatched a Psyker, escorted by Captain Myers and his men, in an effort to try and keep contact with these enigmatic forces of the Plague God. A reminder of the forces at the disposal of Captain Myers. Captain Myers himself is a company leader with a pistol and an energy sword, and after the last battle that they were involved with, I replaced one of his upgrades. He is now a forward observer, so he can give the take aim order to a unit, which will give them +1 to their hit rolls for shooting. He will be accompanied by Myers Misfits, a veteran squad of 5. One of them has got a grenade launcher and one of them has got a field radio. To the left of the screen we've got 311 squad, or 311 squad as I'll undoubtedly call it during the game. At the time I created it, the way you added a heavy weapon to the unit was you literally just added a model. But since I've started the campaign, one-page rules have changed the way that you build these units, and the current way you do it is you replace a standard infantryman with a heavy weapons team. But I'm going to stick with the original configuration I had because that's the points that I used. So all of the units that you see in the armies, their unit configurations were legal rules wise when they were added to the armies. Within the squad, the NCO has got an energy sword and a pistol. There's a grenade launcher, there's obviously an autocannon, there's a field radio, and one of the units has received medical training, so that gives the unit regeneration. They will be accompanied by Master Wylock. He's a company leader who's been upgraded as a psychic. He has been dispatched by the HDF High Command in order to try and psychically keep track of the Plague Brothers, who seem to be able to materialise from one place to another in unexplained ways. Towards the top of the screen we've got 3rd Support Squad. That's a weapons team of 3 mortars, and they are accompanied by Lieutenant Ho. He's a company leader, and just like Captain Myers, he's been upgraded with the forward observer rule so that he can issue the mortars the take aim rule, so they'll be hitting on 4s instead of 5s when they shoot. Top right of the screen we've got Silent and Deadly, a unit of snipers. Again, when I first created the army list for the campaign, you could take snipers in units of 5. Current rules you can only take them as units of 3, but I'm just being consistent throughout the campaign, so it's a unit of 5 snipers. They have had an experience upgrade. They are now headstrong, so they get +1 to any morale tests. And last but not least, over on the right side of the screen we've got the Sushi, the unit of 10 conscripts, and that comes to a total of 1020 points. Here are the enigmatic forces of Lord Cankerous. He is a plague champion, he's been upgraded with destroyer armour, and he is armed with a great scythe. To the right of the screen we've got the Determined, a unit of 5 Plague Brothers. One has been upgraded with a great scythe and another has been upgraded with a plague launcher. The other 3 have all got heavy rifles and close combat weapons. Towards the top of the screen we have the Faithful, a unit of 10 plague cultists. One of them has got a machine gun. And then finally the newest unit at Lord Cankerous's bidding, the Bringer of Bile. It's a plague drone equipped with twin plague sprayers, and that comes to a total of 865 points. The 3 crystals at the front are to remind me that because there's more than 150 points of difference between the HDF and the Plague Disciples, they get 1 underdog bonus for each full 50 points of difference. So on 3 occasions during the game they'll be able to modify a dice roll by +1 or -1, and that can either be their own or the enemy's. But they can't use more than 1 underdog bonus on a single roll, so I can't use 2 at the same time to add +2 or subtract -2 from a dice roll. Okay, we set up. Random number of objectives was 5, so I've set them up in a line across the centre. So those 3 there, with 1 in the exact centre, the other 2 on the centre line, and then 1 12 inches away from each of those objectives near the Plague Disciples deployment zone, and mirror image over on the other side. And I've tried to make the battlefield as symmetrical as I can, just so that neither side gains a particular advantage. The Plague Disciples won the roll-off for deployment. We've got the Determined in the centre, we've got the Faithful, the Cultists, on the left flank, and the Bringer of Bile, the Plague Drone, on the right flank. Lord Cankerous is in ambush. For the HDF line, we've got 311 Squad in the centre, accompanied by Master Wylock. On their right flank, we've got Captain Myers with his veterans. And on the left flank, behind the shelter of this rock, we've got 3rd Support Squad, accompanied by Lieutenant Ho, and also the conscripts. The snipers have scouted forwards onto this ridge overlooking the central objective. Now, the Plague Disciples won the deployment roll-off, so they will get to go first in the first turn, but before we do that, let's see what special objectives each army has got for this game. Special objective for the Plague Disciples. 6. Destruction. The most expensive enemy unit must be destroyed. The most expensive HDF unit is 311 Squad. They come to 275 points with all of their upgrades. So, special objective for the HDF. 3. Casting. At least 1 attempt to cast or block spells per round. Just as well they brought a Psyker. First up, at the start of turn 1, is there going to be a random event on a 5+? No! First up, the Determined have advanced, trying to find some cover behind that rock, so they're out of line of sight of 311 Squad, and they're going to open fire on the snipers. The snipers have stealth, so they're -1 to hit, and I'm going to deem them in cover as well, because they're in terrain, so they'll get -1 to hit as well. So the Determined are quality 3+, but in this case they'll be hitting on 5s. Starting off with the Plague Launcher. 1 shot. That's a 6. 6 is from that Plague Launcher. Right. Now then, someone put in the comments that in theory that is 9 hits, because it's blast 3, so it's the 1 hit becomes 3, and then poison multiplies all hits by 3. But yeah, I'm going to go with 6. So it's blast 3, so 1 hit becomes 3 hits, and a 6 is all hits become tripled. So to my mind it's 6. Could be 9, but yeah, I'm going to interpret it as 6. So 6 saves of 5 up. That's 1 save, but the other 5 go through. There's 5 in the squad, so just 1 shot from the Plague Launcher takes out 5 snipers. Okay, that's a good start for the Plague Marines, not so good a start for the HDF. If that had been 9 hits, that would have been even more brutal. Yowzers. Next up, Captain Myers and his veteran squad have advanced, so they've made it into the cover of that terrain piece. They're also on the objective. He's going to order them to take aim and shoot at the Plague Cultists. Now, there's only the grenade launcher and one of the riflemen that can draw line of sight on the Plague Cultists. So, initially we'll go with the grenade launcher. This is 1 shot, ordinarily hitting on a 4, but hitting on a 3 because of take aim. And even though, in effect, the target is 50% obscured, and therefore deemed to be in cover, it's a blast weapon, so it ignores cover. So 1 shot hitting on a 3. And that's a hit. If it wasn't for take aim, that would have been a miss. Now then, do the Plague Disciples want to use one of their underdog bonuses to modify that down to a 2? I think we do. This early in the game, I think the Plague Forces want to keep their forces as intact as possible. So 1 underdog bonus spent on turning that 3 into a 2, so it will become a miss. 1 rifle shot, normally hitting on a 4, but they're in cover, so it'll be a 5, but take aim takes it back to a 4. That's still a hit. I think we'll let that one go through. We won't modify it down to a 3. This will be a 5 to save, and it saves. Well, okay. Dice definitely favouring the plague so far this game. And the plague cultists have rushed forwards onto that objective. 311 squad have advanced, and all bar 3 of them can draw line of sight onto the determined, the plague brothers. But the plague brothers are more than half obscured, so they will get the benefit of cover. Master Wylock is going to try and cast a psychic spell. He's going to try and cast Foresight, which is a 4+. He's psychic 1, so this will be a 3+. And that's a 2. Oh dear. I'm really sorry. All of you HDF fans who keep rooting for the HDF and we all love an underdog, it's not me, it's the dice. Right, let's try 3 auto cannons, which will be hitting on 6s because of cover and quality 5. There's a 6, so we get a hit. AP2, so a 5-up save. Fails. And in case you're wondering, the natural 6 is always a hit, so I can't use an underdog bonus on that to turn it into a 5, because a natural 6 will always succeed. Does the wound regenerate on a 5+? No, it doesn't. Do I use an underdog bonus to turn that into a 5? Yes, we do. And again, I'm trying to get these underdog bonuses used up early, if for no other reason than I don't have to try and remember them later on in the game. Right. Grenade launcher will hit on a 5. Because it's a blast weapon, it ignores cover, but that's a 3. And we've got 5 rifles in range, so 5 shots hitting on 6s. Nothing. For the Plague Brothers, the drone has advanced forwards so that it's on that objective. For the HDF, the conscripts have shuffled sideways to get closer to Master Wylock, because if he manages to get that psychic spell off that he failed to do in his activation, you can pick 2 friendly units within 6 inches and they both get +1 to the hit rolls. But they were too far away during his last casting attempt because of the way that the 311 squad had to position themselves to try and get line of sight on the Plague Brothers. And the last activation for the HDF, the mortar teams are going to fire indirectly over at the drone. It's the only enemy unit within range at the moment, because 30-inch range, those Plague Brothers are just out of range. They're about 32 inches away. So not the most efficient use of the mortars, but it's the only target they've got, so they may as well shoot at it. Lieutenant Ho telling them to make sure they take careful aim. So this will be 3 shots hitting on 4s. And everything misses. I'm sorry guys, I'm really sorry. Don't blame me, blame the dice. So that's the end of turn 1. I genuinely did not expect those snipers to get taken down so easily. I expected maybe 1 or 2 of them to die, because they were hitting on 5s, those Plague Brothers. But yeah, to get a 6 off that plague launcher was just very, very fluky. Right, okay, so we've got this objective under control of the Plague Disciples, this objective under the control of the Plague Disciples, this objective under the control of the HDF, and then the central objective and that objective still unclaimed. So that's how things stand at the end of turn 1. In turn 2, the Plague will again get to go first because they finished activating first in turn 1. At the start of turn 2, is there going to be a random event on a 5+? Yes, there is. So this will be 1, or rather 10, 16. Let's look up 16, see what it is. I have a bad feeling about this. 16 is combat fatigue. All units from one random army get -1 to morale until the end of the game. So, random army, we roll the dice to randomly determine which army that is going to be. Odds, it'll be the Plague Disciples. Evens, it'll be the HDF. Odds, Plague Disciples. See, HDF, don't hate me for that. And I'm also going to say that I can't use an underdog bonus to modify that to a 6 or a 4. At the start of turn 2, Lord Cankerous has come in from ambush. He's teleported in behind the mortars. The Plague Disciples will get to activate first because they finish activating first in turn 1, so Lord Cankerous is going to charge the mortar teams. Lieutenant Ho facing down this nightmare apparition who's probably about 3 times bigger than he is if you take bulk into account as well as height. Lord Cankerous gets 2 attacks with his great scythe, hitting on 3+. That dropped on the floor. It was a 5, but I like it to be rolled on the table. That's a 2. Going to use my last underdog bonus to turn that into a 3. That way all the underdog bonuses are now spent and I won't have to remember to use them in future. So 2 hits. These are AP 4, so natural 6s to save. Each failed save is a dead model because each weapons team is tough 3 and Lieutenant Ho is tough 3. Okay, so neither saves. So that's 2 dead mortar teams. I'm going to keep Lieutenant Ho alive because he's got the best combat weapons to be fighting back with. Lieutenant Ho will get 2 attacks back with his energy sword, hitting on 4s. Oh, they both miss. And each mortar crew gets 2 attacks with close combat weapons, hitting on 5s. You can't use take aim on this because it's not a shooting attack, it's a melee attack. And they miss as well. So Lord Cankerous won the combat. 3rd support squad is at half its starting strength. They need to take a morale test. They can use Lieutenant Ho's quality, which is 4+, which fails. Oh dear. So the mortar teams and Lieutenant Ho are routed and Lord Cankerous can consolidate 3 inches. Captain Myers is going to open fire on the cultists. He's going to instruct the veterans to take aim, and because he's part of the unit, I'm going to say he gets it as well, because he deploys as part of the unit. Starting with the grenade launcher, which will hit on a 3. That's a hit, and this time it does hit. Can't modify it because I've used all of the underdog bonuses, so that becomes 3 hits because of blast 3. 5s to save. None of them save, but do they regenerate on 5s? 2 of them regenerate, only 1 dies. 4 rifles and a pistol shot from Captain Myers himself. All the same profile, all hitting on 3s. Everything hits. 5 hits. 5 more saves of 5+. And that's 1. That's pretty cocked. It looks like it would have been a 3 though, so I'll say it would have been a 3 and it doesn't save. But do the other 4 regenerate on a 5+? Okay, there's something seriously screwed up with these dice. They all regenerate. I remember seeing a video once and it was all about probabilities in war games, and apparently the statistics are that 1 in every 5 games you will roll badly and 1 in every 5 games you will roll superbly. And it seems that that's happening to the HDF and the Plague today, both at the same time. While we're over here, the cultists are going to return fire on Captain Myers. There's 3 shots from the machine gun and 8 rifles, because one of them just died. So that'll be 11 shots in total, hitting on 5s. Only 6 miss, so 5 hit. Statistically unlikely, but that's why we roll the dice. Wait, Captain Myers is in cover, so only the 6s should have hit. I'm going to have to watch the footage now, see what I rolled. Right, so there's only 2 6s in there, so there's only 2 hits, because they're quality 5. Captain Myers and his veterans are in cover, so they should have been hitting on 6s, not 5s. So 2 hits, 5s to save. Neither saves, so 2 of the veterans fall. Right, it's the HDF's activation. It's really not looking good for them. Yeah, they've only got 3 units left on the table, so I don't want to quit just yet, but I also remember seeing a video around when you're having a bad game and you know you can't win, go for some kind of moral victory or mini victory. So Master Wylock has ordered 311 squad to turn and aim all of the guns at Lord Cankerous. See if they can't take down this big hulking brute. First of all, he's going to try and cast Foresight on a 4+, 3+ because he's Psychic 1. That goes off. So now he can select 2 units within 6 inches of him to get +1 to their hit rolls. So that will be 311 squad and the conscripts. 3 shots from the autocannon hitting on 4s. 1 hit. AP2, this will be a 5-up save. Fails. 5 to regenerate. Doesn't regenerate, so that's 1 wound through on Lord Cankerous. He's tough 6 because of his destroyer armour. He's got 5 wounds left. 1 shot from the grenade launcher will hit on a 4. That's a hit. It's blast 3, but it's only 1 hit because there's only 1 model in the target unit. I think that should be linked to tough, because generally a tough model is pretty big and chunky, and so a big chunky model is going to get hit more than once by flying shrapnel. But I don't write the rules. So 1 hit. I suppose I could have done that with the other small arms, thinking about it, couldn't I? Because they're all the same in effect. None of the rest of the weapons that are going to shoot at him have got AP. Anyway, 3-up save. Passes. There's 8 rifles. The 2 pistols from the NCO and Master Wylock are both out of range. So 8 rifles hitting on 4s. 4 hits. See, these dice are starting to obey the law of averages now. 3-up saves. 2 fail. Do they regenerate? Yes, they do. Okay, so after all that, Lord Cankerous takes 1 wound. The Plague Brothers have rushed forwards onto the central objective, and I was originally going to put the conscripts into Lord Cankerous, but I think actually we'll try and take some of those Plague Brothers out, because they're only 1 wound each. 10 shots hitting on 5s, ordinarily quality 6, but they're under the effects of the same psychic spell cast by Wylock on 311 squad. That's not bad. That's what, 1, 2, 3, 6 hits. 6 out of 10. 6 saves of 3-up. That's 3 fails. Do they regenerate on a 5+? 2 of them do. So 1 of the Plague Brothers dies. The Plague Drone has advanced onto that objective. It is fast and it's got Strider, so it can move 8 inches and not be impeded by terrain. It's now going to shoot its twin Plague Sprayers into the conscripts. This will be 12 shots hitting on 3s. 6s are poison. I've got a bad feeling about this. 5 misses, but there is a single 6, so that becomes 3 hits, which means 9 hits in total. Yes. 5's to save. That's 4 save. So 5 conscripts die. They'll need to take a morale check. They're quality 6. This needs to be a 6 to pass. It's a 3. So the conscripts are pinned. At the end of turn 2, it's looking pretty dire for the HDF. The Plague Disciples are in control of 4 objectives. The one on their left flank controlled by the cultists, the one in the centre controlled by the Plague Brothers, and these 2 on their right flank, while the HDF hold 1 single objective, and their forces are significantly depleted. I think if I was playing this game as the HDF against my opponent, I think I would simply concede at this point. So I think that is what I'm going to do. because I can see really bad stuff happening to the HDF if we don't. Well, to all those HDF players out there, I'm really sorry. That must have been painful to watch, and I'll be honest, it was painful to play, because the HDF are one of my favourite armies. It's my biggest in terms of model count by a long way. So yeah, I do have a soft spot for my HDF. But yeah, maybe it's the way I built the army. I mean, essentially I wanted it to be a predominantly infantry based force, because the narrative around the campaign is most of the significant military assets for the HDF would have been destroyed by the Orcs during the initial planetary bombardment when they entered the system. So that's why I wanted it to be predominantly infantry. But yeah, I think I designed it wrong. Yeah, we are lacking rending against the plague, we're lacking armor piercing. Yeah, so my fault. But yeah, I also need to try and be unbiased, because I can't just say, oh woe is me because the HDF are getting creamed every single time. It's probably not great to watch if you're the HDF, but it's the way the game goes. Yeah, maybe I'm just being too melodramatic. For you Plague fans out there, you must be loving it. And I know the Orc fans, they're really loving it, because they keep getting beaten, but like a true Orc, they keep getting back up and they keep winning. The next game's going to be interesting, because they're going to get a shed load of underdog bonuses, because points wise they're half the size of the Soul Snatcher cult, which is who the Orcs are going to be playing next. But in the meantime, it's, yeah, I just don't really know what to say for the HDF fans out there, other than it's not me, it's the dice. Well, possibly it's partly me because of the way I designed the army, but predominantly it's the dice. Some really good rolls from the Plague, some really bad rolls from the HDF. Right, that's enough of my melodrama. Let's get into the post-game stuff. So a victory for the Plague Disciples. That will give them 2 victory points for the campaign and 50 points to add to their reserves. They've already got 50 points in their reserves bank, so 100 points to spend on reserves in total. They did not achieve their special objective of destroying the most expensive unit in the HDF. A defeat for the HDF, so no additional victory points for them. They're still sitting on 1, but they will get 150 points towards their reserves. They've still got 10 in the bank, so that's 160. And I'm going to say they did get their special objective, because they did cast a psychic spell in every turn of the game that was actually played. So that will give them 210 points to spend on reserves. Rolling for casualties. We've only got a roll for HDF units, starting with 3rd Support Squad. That's a 3, so they recover with no lasting injuries. Lieutenant Ho, he recovers with no lasting injuries. Silent and Deadly, the Sniper Squad, recover with no lasting injuries. Can we get a clean sweep, please? Don't let me have just talked that up. Sushi, the conscripts, yep, they're absolutely fine, no lasting injuries. Experience for the HDF. Captain Myers survived the battle, he gets an XP, putting him on 4 in total. Same for Myers Misfits, they survived the battle, they get an XP, 4 in total. Master Wylock survived the battle, he gets his first experience point. And finally 311 squad, 311 squad survived the battle, giving them an extra XP, putting them on 2 in total. For the Plague Disciples, Lord Cankerous survived the battle, he killed the mortar teams, and technically he also killed Lieutenant Ho, because he was in the unit when it routed, so he destroyed a character. Now I ummed and ahed about whether or not to count that, and then I thought, am I just being too sensitive around the HDF? So yeah, I'm going to say it counts, because he was part of the unit was destroyed, so technically he killed a character as well. So that will give him an extra 4 victory points, putting him on 7 in total, which means he levels up, and he's our first character in the campaign to level up. So first of all, we need to roll and see which skill set he gets. Didn't leave myself anywhere to roll the dice, that's good. That's a 3. So that's fighter or shooter. So we now roll to see which skill trait he gets. Now we've chosen his skill set, and he becomes 25 points more expensive. Now, with him only having close combat weapons, we will obviously go for fighter. So let's see. That's a 2. He's a duelist. Enemy units are -1 to hit him in melee. Okay, so he's just become even tougher. The Determined survived the battle and they got a kill. They got those snipers, which I'm still pretty flabbergasted about. I genuinely did not expect that to happen. Some of you will probably be going, well, what do you expect? I didn't expect that. But yes, that puts them on 6, which means they also level up. So they also become 25 points more expensive. Let's see which trait they get. 4. Resilient. +1 to rolls when blocking hits, so +1 to save rolls. Yeah, I like that. That's very thematic. The Bringer of Bile, the plague drone, survived its first battle, gets its first XP. Didn't kill any units though. And finally, the Faithful survived the battle, giving them their second XP, so they've now got 2. Reinforcements for the Plague Brothers. This is Puskworm Warptongue. He's a plague champion and he is a psychic. He's got a heavy pistol and a close combat weapon. He costs 95 points, which leaves the Plague Brothers with 5 points left in their reserves pool. For the HDF, I decided they badly needed some armour, and oddly enough this was the cheapest unit that I could find. Even the attack walkers, the way I wanted to outfit them, I couldn't afford them points wise. So we've got Infernus. It's an attack vehicle, it's got a flamethrower cannon and a heavy machine gun. It's fast, so hopefully it'll be able to zip around the battlefield a bit more. It's got impact 6 if it ever fancies ramming into something, and it's tough 6, so not the toughest thing in the world, but it is at least defense 2+, and it's also quality 4+, so hopefully that will make a bit of difference in the coming games for the HDF. Right, so that was that, and I'll be honest, at a couple of points as I was editing the footage I did consider completely reshooting the whole game, but then I thought, well no, because the reality of life is sometimes you do have a bad game, so I would only have been doing it in an effort to make a good video, and that doesn't necessarily reflect real life. I'm just playing a war game by myself effectively, so I both won and lost. So yeah, like I say, the reality is some days you just have a bad game. Pick yourself up, dust yourself off, play the next one. So thank you very much for all your encouragement. Please continue to like, comment and subscribe, and until next time, God bless.